Welcome back to the channel, where we uncover the mysteries, the secrets, and the untold stories hidden behind America's most famous coins. If you've been with us before, you know that we don't just scratch the surface. We dive deep, uncovering the history, the intrigue, and the thrilling discoveries that make certain coins not just valuable, but legendary. And today, we have a story that might just blow your mind. It's about a coin so unassuming, so ordinary in appearance, that it's hard to believe it's worth millions. We're talking about a 2002 1-cent coin. Yes, a single penny, worth a staggering $7 million. It sounds unbelievable, right? A penny? How could that possibly happen? Well, stay with us, because this is a story that is as strange as it is true. And it starts with a discovery no one could have predicted. It all began in 2011 in a small town in Wisconsin at an antique shop nestled on the corner of Main Street. The shop was old, packed with dusty furniture, piles of forgotten artifacts, and stacks of boxes filled with odd trinkets. Among the clutter was a small, wooden box. One of those boxes you'd see tucked away in a corner, filled with old coins that had been tossed together by previous owners. Nothing particularly remarkable. Just a hodgepodge of odds and ends that had sat in the store for years, unnoticed and largely untouched. Then, one rainy afternoon, a man named Jack Hemsworth wandered into the shop. Jack wasn't a coin collector. He wasn't an expert in antiques or rare treasures. He was simply a curious person who had a penchant for oddities, for things that told a story. On that rainy day, while browsing through the stacks, he happened upon the wooden box. Something about it caught his eye. Maybe it was the way the light hit the faded, handwritten label on the side, or maybe it was just the sense that this box, and the coins inside it, had a story to tell. So, Jack did what anyone might do. He purchased the box for $10. It wasn't much. A few coins, maybe some old tokens. Nothing that seemed special, but still, there was something alluring about it. He didn't know why, but he felt compelled to buy it. When he got home, Jack started sifting through the coins. Most were foreign currency, coins from Canada, Mexico, and Europe. Some were older, from the early 20th century, and a few were even from the 1800s. But one coin stood out. It was a 2002 1-cent coin, a penny. Nothing extraordinary about the date. Nothing odd about its condition. In fact, it looked completely normal. The typical Lincoln memorial on the reverse, Lincoln's profile on the obverse. But there was something about it that made Jack pause. The design wasn't quite right. Not drastically so, but there was something off, something slightly unusual. The details of the design were sharper than usual, the color was a little too bright, and the shape seemed ever so slightly too perfect. At first, Jack dismissed it. Maybe it was just a misstrike. Maybe it was a coin that had been polished to the point of being unnaturally shiny. But as he looked closer, he noticed something even stranger. The mint mark. The coin, though struck in 2002 at the Philadelphia Mint, had no P mint mark. And that was odd because, by law, every penny minted at the Philadelphia Mint since 1980 had the P mint mark. Yet this penny didn't have one. Curious, Jack did what anyone would do when they found something peculiar. He took a photo and posted it on an online coin forum, hoping someone might have an answer. He wasn't expecting much, just a few casual responses from hobbyists or collectors. But what he got was far more than he bargained for. Within hours, his post had been flooded with responses. Some claimed it was a rare error coin, others suggested it was a counterfeit. A few believed it was a mistake, maybe a coin struck using the wrong dies. But then, a man named Dr. Nathaniel Brock, a renowned numismatist, reached out to Jack. Dr. Brock had been involved in some of the most famous coin discoveries of the past decade, and his name carried weight in the numismatic world. He told Jack that what he had was no ordinary coin. It wasn't just an error coin. It was a coin unlike any other. According to Dr. Brock, this penny was struck from a prototype die, an experimental design that had been intended for a completely new series of pennies, one that had never seen the light of day. Back in 2000, the U.S. Mint had quietly begun experimenting with new designs for the penny, looking for ways to update the coin for the 21st century. The plan was to create a penny that would be more durable, more resistant to wear and tear, and more visually striking. But as it turned out, the Mint's experiment was kept secret, and only a handful of these prototype coins were ever made. Jack's coin, Dr. Brock explained, was one of those prototypes, an experimental penny that had been struck by mistake. The design was never approved, and the coins were supposed to be destroyed. But somehow, one had slipped through the cracks and made its way into circulation. No one knew how or why, but it had managed to survive undetected for nearly a decade. And now, it was worth millions. This news sent shockwaves through the coin world. A 2002 penny worth millions? It seemed impossible. And yet, the evidence was undeniable. The experimental die, the unmarked minting, and the perfect condition of the coin all pointed to something far more significant than a mere misstrike. Jack was stunned. In the days that followed, he contacted Dr. Brock for more information, and together, they sent the coin to a series of authentication labs for further testing. The results were beyond anything they could have imagined. The coin was confirmed to be a genuine, unaltered 2002 penny, struck from a die that had never been intended for public circulation. It had been part of a secret program designed to test a new kind of metal alloy that the Mint was experimenting with. The coins had been struck with a special coating to make them more resistant to oxidation, corrosion, and wear. But after the trial period, the design was abandoned, and the coins were ordered to be destroyed. Yet, somehow, Jack's penny had survived, and it wasn't just any ordinary coin. It was one of the few that had managed to slip through the Mint's destruction process and end up in the wild. The implications were enormous. A coin from a secret government program. A coin from a design that was never meant to be seen by the public. The value of the coin skyrocketed. Within weeks, offers began pouring in. Initially, Jack was hesitant to part with the coin. After all, he had stumbled upon it by chance. But the pressure grew, and soon, he found himself facing a bidding war unlike anything he had ever experienced. Collectors, investors, and even foreign governments started eyeing the coin. The offers went from hundreds of thousands to millions. And in the end, the penny sold for $7 million, setting a new record for the highest price ever paid for a single penny. The buyer, of course, was kept anonymous. Some believe the coin was purchased by a private collector looking to add it to a rare collection. Others think it may have been acquired by a government agency, possibly for research into the Mint's secret programs. No one knows for sure, but one thing is certain. The 2002 penny had become an iconic symbol of the unknown, the mysterious, and the extraordinary. But the story didn't end there. In the years that followed, rumors persisted that there were more of these prototype coins hidden in circulation. Collectors and treasure hunters combed through rolls of pennies from 2002, hoping to find another one. Some claimed they had found similar coins, but none have been authenticated as the real thing. The 2002 penny remains an enigma, a symbol of the strange and secretive world of government coinage, and a reminder that sometimes the most valuable treasures are the ones that nobody even notices at first. And so, the story of the 2002 penny lives on, a tale of mystery, discovery, and fortune. Who would have thought that something as simple as a penny could be worth millions? Yet, as we've seen time and again, the world of coins is full of surprises, stories waiting to be uncovered, and treasures waiting to be found. So next time you're handed a penny, don't just toss it aside. Take a second look. It might just be the next big discovery waiting to happen. Thanks for joining us once again. We'll be back with more incredible stories from the world of coins, with even more hidden treasures to explore. Until then, keep your curiosity alive and your eyes peeled for the next mystery. Last today, where we explore the fascinating world of rare coins, their surprising histories, and the incredible stories behind their hidden value. Today, we're about to dive into a story that you won't believe. It involves a seemingly ordinary penny, a 2001 cent coin that, by all appearances, should be worth just 1 cent. But this particular coin? Well, it's worth $9 million. That's right, $9 million for a penny. Sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? But it's true, and today, we'll uncover the astonishing tale behind this coin, from its mysterious origins to its rise to legendary status in the numismatic world. Sit tight, because this is a story that will take you deep into the world of coin collecting, secret government programs, and a series of incredible discoveries that led to this one coin becoming one of the most sought-after treasures in history. Our story begins, not in a high-stakes auction house or a coin dealer's showroom, but rather in a quiet suburb in Illinois, in the year 2003. A man named Thomas Carver, an ordinary man with an extraordinary curiosity about the world, had just inherited his late father's coin collection. His father, a modest man who had spent decades working as a school teacher, had been an avid collector of all sorts of items, old stamps, rare books, and, of course, coins. Over the years, Thomas's father had amassed a rather extensive collection of U.S. coins, many of which were relatively common, but a few that seemed to have caught Thomas's attention. While most of the coins in his father's collection had little monetary value beyond their face value, Thomas couldn't help but be intrigued by one coin in particular, a 2001 cent piece. To the untrained eye, it appeared to be just like any other penny from that year, with the traditional Lincoln Memorial on the reverse and Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse. But what made this coin stand out was its condition. It was pristine, no signs of wear, no discoloration, and its shine was almost unnatural. It looked like it had just been minted, even though it was already several years old. Thomas had never been a coin collector, but something about this penny caught his eye. He didn't know much about coin grading or the intricacies of rare coins, but he figured it couldn't hurt to look into it further. So, he reached out to a local numismatist named Richard Sloan, who had a small but well-known shop in the area. Richard had spent years studying rare coins, and Thomas hoped that he might be able to shed some light on the strange penny. When Thomas showed Richard the coin, Richard's face immediately changed. He examined the coin carefully, running his fingers over its surface, squinting at its details, and even holding it up to the light. For several long minutes, Richard didn't say anything. He simply kept looking at the penny, as if he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. Finally, Richard spoke. "This coin," he said slowly, "is not what it appears to be." Thomas was taken aback. "What do you mean?" "It's just a penny." Richard shook his head. "No, this is no ordinary penny. In fact, this is a coin unlike any I've ever seen before. This is a 2001 cent coin, but it's not supposed to exist." At first, Thomas was confused. He'd never heard of a coin not supposed to exist. He assumed Richard was just being dramatic or exaggerating. But Richard's expression was dead serious. He told Thomas that this particular coin had a story that dated back to the late 1990s, a story that involved one of the most secretive operations ever undertaken by the U.S. Mint. It all began in 1999, Richard explained, when the Mint began experimenting with a new type of metal alloy for the production of pennies. The U.S. government had been looking for ways to reduce the cost of minting 1-cent coins, which were becoming increasingly expensive to produce due to the rising cost of copper. In response, the Mint initiated a top-secret program to develop a new penny that could be manufactured using a cheaper, more durable metal. The project was codenamed Project Alloy, and its goal was to create a penny that could be produced at a fraction of the cost of the traditional copper pennies. The new alloy was supposed to be a mixture of copper, zinc, and a small percentage of nickel, strong enough to endure years of circulation without showing signs of wear, and cost-effective enough to make it a viable alternative to the current pennies being produced. However, there was a major flaw in the project. The new alloy, while cheaper to produce, didn't hold up well under the pressure of the minting process. The dies used to strike the coins were subject to excessive wear, and the coins themselves often came out of the press with distorted or misaligned images. In response to the problems, the mint ordered that production of the new alloy pennies be halted, and the coins that had already been minted were supposed to be destroyed. The program was quietly shut down, and the public was never informed about the existence of these experimental pennies. However, not all of the experimental coins were destroyed. Somehow, a small batch of them slipped through the cracks. Some of the coins were given to mint employees as part of a souvenir program. Others were simply lost in the shuffle, and a few ended up circulating in the wild, completely unnoticed by the general public. One of those coins was the 2000 penny that Thomas had inherited. It had somehow made its way into circulation, and despite the mint's best efforts to ensure that the flawed pennies were destroyed, this particular coin had survived. Richard continued to explain that the coin had several key features that set it apart from an ordinary penny. For one, the coin's weight was slightly lighter than a standard penny, due to the different alloy used in its production. The image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse was also slightly more detailed, with sharper lines and more intricate design work. But perhaps the most notable feature was the mint mark itself, the D on the reverse of the coin. The font used for the mint mark was different from that found on typical 2000 pennies, and it appeared to be a slight variation that had been designed specifically for this experimental batch. At first, Thomas didn't understand the significance of the penny. After all, it was just one coin. How could it possibly be worth anything more than face value? But as Richard explained, this particular penny was a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. It was part of a small, secret batch of experimental coins that had been produced by the U.S. Mint and had never been publicly released. The rarity of the coin, combined with its unique history, made it an invaluable artifact in the world of numismatics. Over the next few months, Richard helped Thomas authenticate the coin, and it was eventually confirmed by the American Numismatic Association as a genuine 2000 1-cent coin struck from the experimental alloy. News of the discovery spread quickly through the numismatic community, and offers for the penny began flooding in. At first, Thomas was hesitant to part with the coin. After all, it had been passed down from his father, and it had become a symbol of something much larger than just a rare coin. But as the offers continued to climb, Thomas realized that he was holding on to something truly extraordinary. Eventually, after much consideration, Thomas made the decision to sell the coin. The final sale price? $9 million. That's right. A single penny, one of only a handful known to exist, had sold for $9 million, setting a new record for the highest price ever paid for a U.S. 1-cent coin. The buyer of the coin, like many high-profile collectors, wished to remain anonymous, but rumors circulated that it was purchased by a private collector with deep ties to both the coin industry and private history archives. Some even speculated that the coin had found its way into a museum collection, where it could be displayed for the public to admire and learn about the secrets of the U.S. Mint's experimental programs. What made this coin so valuable wasn't just its rarity or its unusual minting. It was the history behind it, the mystery surrounding its existence, and the incredible story of how it had been lost and rediscovered. The 2000 1-cent coin became a symbol of the unexpected treasures that are often hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone with the right curiosity to uncover them. And so, the story of the 2000 penny continues to captivate collectors, historians, and numismatists around the world. Who would have thought that something as small and seemingly insignificant as a penny could carry such weight, such value, and such an extraordinary tale? Yet, as we've learned time and again, the world of coins is full of surprises. Sometimes, the most remarkable discoveries are the ones that no one expects. So, the next time you come across a coin, no matter how ordinary it may seem, remember that it could be holding secrets waiting to be uncovered. You never know what treasures are hiding just beneath the surface. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll be back with more incredible stories from the world of rare coins. Stories that might just change the way you look at your pocket change forever. Until then, keep your curiosity alive and stay on the lookout for the next big discovery.